Thanks. We love to hear customer success story, as I said before. So this is something that can be both emotional and rewarding. Okay. So the next presenter is the brilliant Cherry, as everyone knows. Cherry. Cherry will walk you through financial integration and new features and finance stuff. So yeah, so enjoy.
Thank you very much. So, welcome everyone to my presentation on financial integrations in Priority. I'm Cherry Mallam, I'm Support Desk Manager here at Meditech. I know many of you from either working directly with you or even meeting you in the last couple of days. If you are still in your implementation phase, I look forward to starting to talk to you and meet you. So, introduction. What am I going to go over with you today? I'd like to give you a bit of an introduction about what an integration is, what types of integration exist, why they're useful, and generally the different reasons why you would use each type of integration. I will then go on to talk to you about Dokka. So for those that haven't heard of Dokka, it's an automated loading of your financial documents into Priority, particularly useful for your accounts payable teams. Shout out to the accounts payable teams. I will then talk to you about Moneyhub. Moneyhub is an automation of bringing your bank statements into Priority. It's an integration that Meditech have written, and it saves you time and it saves you from making mistakes by bringing in the data automatically for you. I'll then talk to you about BACS payments and the options that Priority has inside it for batch payments through BACS. So integrations. We have post-type integrations. So post is taking information from an external source outside of Priority, somewhere else, and bringing it into Priority for you. There are a few benefits to using post-type integrations. Update, that's keeping your data much like post, but maintaining data that already exists rather than bringing in new data into your system. And get type integrations, you might want to get data out of Priority for use elsewhere, such as on a website. Each of these three have different reasons why you would use them, and the integrations I'm talking to you today about use a mixture of post and get. So, APIs. You have heard about APIs today, I'm sure. Fodo's been over APIs, REST API particularly, but just to give you a bit of information, just from a basic breakdown point of view, API is pretty much like you in a restaurant. You're giving orders to a waiter. Waiter takes on that order to the kitchen, it's a request. Kitchen takes that request, prepares some food, gives it to the waiter takes it back to you. So actually, instead of food in this situation, think of that as data. So the API is dealing with requests for data and processing that. So instead of being you in the kitchen, it's going to be a server and a customer or an application on each side here. We also have something called webhooks. So an API versus a webhook. API is proactive. It's always asking, is there any new data? And the response may be no. Again, a minute later, is there any data? No. Until there is some data, and then it processes it. We have such a thing as a webhook, which builds on top of that. And the webhook side of things is actually reactive. So instead of checking all the time whether there is something to process, a webhook will be triggered by an event. And when that event happens, when some data appears somewhere, the webhook goes, I've got some data. And it processes that in. So Priority supports both types here, APIs and webhooks on top of APIs. They are used for different reasons. So I'll now go on to speak to you about Dokka. So who are Dokka? Dokka are a partner. They're an external software provider. They are founded in 2017, and they have developed a breakthrough technology which understands financial documents in any format and in any language. So based on the technology they've developed, they've got a sophisticated platform which has a seamless integration with Priority. The go-live time for Dokka is anything from actually 2 to 4 weeks, depending on the complexities, any configurations you might need. And what it should do after that is save you a lot of time. So moving on to a little overview of what Dokka is and what Dokka does before I show you Dokka. So there are several ways that you can use Dokka to bring your financial documents, i.e. invoices that you've been sent by your suppliers, into the system, into the platform. So you can actually receive through WhatsApp, you can scan them in, you can upload them on a mobile device, you can do a picture upload, you can actually hook it right into your emails and let the emails bring the invoices straight into the platform. So if you do that, then you have the added benefit of the email body itself being brought in to the platform as well as the invoice. So you can see exactly where it came from, you can trace it, you can see all of the details. So that happens within seconds. Once an invoice arrives in the system, within 7 to 10 seconds, Dokka scans the entire invoice, everything on the page, and it pulls in all of the information it can find, and it creates a suggested entry for you to then post that as an invoice in Priority. So it saves you the manual input of having to enter a supplier invoice in Priority. It scans it, it knows what it is, it knows what account to go to, it should know what the line items are, and it will allow you to preview that and post it in. So all that remains after that is to check the proposed entry and publish it into Priority. So go straight in and for you to check actually inside your system. So Dokka also has a chat functionality, quite clever. You can chat to your colleagues in the Dokka platform directly about certain documents. It has a Google-like search function that searches all of your documents in one place. It has automated approval flows, and it has much more, some of which I will be showing you in just a moment. We're moving on to the demo. This is the login screen for Dokka. So you'll notice that I'm accessing Dokka from a browser. Dokka is available anywhere and from any device. It's just online. It does support single sign-on technology, or if you're not using that, you can log in with a given account. So let me go ahead and log in. So on the landing page here, we can see we've got the organisation name at the top, Meditech UK Limited, and below that we have a list of companies. So if you are a multi-company organisation, you will have a tile here for each of your companies in your organisation. And at a glance, you can see how many invoices there are waiting to be processed. This is especially useful if you're using the automated bringing in of invoices through email, because they will just be landing in Dokka without you having to upload each one. So you want to be able to manage that, come in and see how many are waiting for you to look at and approve and send to Priority. Also, if you have any outstanding messages, you'll see a notification on here about that as well. So Dokka has a quite intuitive user interface. What they've done is created a virtual desk representation. So what you see here is supposed to reflect what your desk would look like if you had a pile of invoices on your desk, sticky notes included. So that's one of the main features here, is they don't want you to have a cluttered desk full of invoices. We want you to be able to have that in a more manageable way, but still hold on to the sort of the functionality of having them all laid out like that for you to see. So tools that Dokka has to help you manage this. So first of all, you can see some of my documents here have the corner turned over. This indicates either basically a pile of documents, either the invoice is multiple pages or you've created a pile of documents, a folder, essentially a virtual folder. You can add sticky notes. You can see here I've got one called Please Hold, but it's just as easy as going into the edit menu and adding a sticky note. You can even change the colour of it. You could say, don't pay this yet. And you'll see it arrives on screen. Any of your colleagues who are logging into the platform will also see the note that you've added. You can split and merge documents, and you can also duplicate them quite easily through the options menu here. And you can add tags. So, such as this invoice here, I might tag this one actually as GitHub. Upload the tag and save it. Now that's saved under the tag of GitHub. Now this is especially useful if you want to create like a saved search. If you want to categorize certain invoices, you can then search based on your tag. You can see that's retrieved any invoices that I have tagged as GitHub, and I can now favorite that search. Name it, and it will appear at the bottom in my favorites, so I can access it at any time, and I can continue to add that tag to other documents. So you will notice on the left-hand side, we have what looks like an email inbox. It is exactly that. It's a reflection of how you would usually manage your invoices through an inbox. You follow the invoice through all the way from the inbox through the pending and folder all the way into the done folder. So there's quite a lot more on the virtual desk that I could show you, but I think I'm going to move on to the accounting automation bit, which is where it actually links with priority. So going out of my search, based on my tag, you'll see here, I did mention in my previous slide that there's a Google-like search function. Now, what that means is I can search for any keyword in here, and because Dokka has used essentially what's an OCR reader to read everything on the page of an invoice, I can search for any word, and as long as it appears on the page, even if it's in a description, a footer, a logo, it will find that invoice. So let me now search for GitHub. So this isn't just going to pull up things tagged as GitHub, it's going to find any invoice with the word GitHub in. It's found that, instantly within seconds amongst my thousands and thousands of documents. So let's click on an invoice and have a look at what Dokka provides. So we have a split screen. On the left is your invoice in the format it was received. If it came through an email, you'll also have a copy of the email alongside it, the body of the email, that is. You can see here that Dokka has, on the right-hand side, given a projected entry of what it thinks you should post into priority. So it's using artificial intelligence to extract that and try and therefore know which bit of data off this invoice goes into which field. So most of the time out of the box, Dokka is quite accurate. It's processed millions of invoices in over 15 countries around the world, and it learns from those processing of invoices all the time. But sometimes you'll find that maybe it doesn't quite know what to do with an invoice. You see here I've got no credit account listed. Now what I can do using Dokka, the features in Dokka is to drag and drop. So you can see here I've got GitHub written essentially in the footer. Now let me drag and drop that into my credit account. Because Dokka's linked directly into priority, it knows my list of suppliers, and it's found GitHub. So I can select that in here. I can review all of the other bits of information in here. For example, it didn't know what debit account to put it in. So I can select one. And when I'm happy with the proposed entry, I can actually select whether it's an entry journal or whether it goes in as a multi-GRV invoice, for example. I can then publish it. And what Dokka will do, it will learn for next time. So if you have an invoice from GitHub and it didn't quite populate all the information, drag and drop, fill it in how you want it, and then next time you get an invoice, it will do all that for you. You won't have to do it again. So now I can publish that into priority. And it gets smarter the more that you work with it. So that's published. It now moves on to the next invoice in the pile. So I'm going to pop across to priority now. I'm just going to have a look in my multi-GRV invoices. Looking at GitHub. So you can see here it's brought in a temporary invoice. You can set Dokka to post it in as a final invoice, but I always think it would be good to have it as temporary, just so you can be sure until you are more comfortable with it. And then I can finalize it. So going back to the interface of Dokka, a couple of things I haven't mentioned here. You have the Insights. So over here on the Insights tab, you can see if you had any previous entries posted for the same supplier or the same type of invoice, you'll see them listed with the amounts and with the data that was loaded. So it's particularly useful if you get a regular invoice from a supplier and you want to make sure it is in line with what you usually pay. So if you actually now have an invoice that comes up double the amount, you can see the last 3 invoices were half of that. Why? You can also see a history up here, full audit of things that have been changed in the system. And you can have a look here at the chat functionality if you want to send a message to one of your colleagues on the given document. On the Dokka homepage, you can also change view. You can go into what we call grid view. This is a bit more related to how you'd expect a traditional accounting system to look. It's all of your invoices in a list. You can slice and dice the information, you can save views, and you can export it. Dokka also supports 2- and 3-way matching, fully matched line item extraction, and it has an additional approvals module, which is an advanced module that can sit on top of Dokka to allow you to have flows of approval for people in your team to approve the invoices. So that's Dokka. If you would like any more information about Dokka, if you want to know more, you want to see it, give me a call, give me an email, I'll follow up with you and I will be happy to show you. I'd like to now go back to the presentation. Thank you. So moving on to Moneyhub. Moneyhub is an integration Meditech have developed to integrate with Moneyhub. Moneyhub is a service that allows you to connect using what's called an account information service provider. And it allows you to essentially connect into your bank and use an API and a webhook to link into your bank account. So whenever a transaction happens in your bank, it sends an API request and it extends that transaction into priority into your bank statements. So you can reconcile your bank statement, you can open payments and receipts based on that, and you skip out the step of having to manually insert your bank statement or upload from a file or enter in whatever way you're doing as a more manual method. So once you connect Moneyhub up, you do have to give consent due to the nature of the data and the fact it's a bank. You have to renew that consent every 90 days, which is a very straightforward process, but you do have to do it just to make sure that your approval is still given. It does use a webhook, which is something I mentioned earlier in the presentation, so it's not always checking whether there's a new transaction. It's when a new transaction happens, it gets sent through. And there's a regular synchronization that happens, so it just appears in your priority. Just to mention on top of that, there's another type of service that Moneyhub provides called a payment initiation service, which allows direct bank-to-bank payments. It's something that we are looking into providing in the future. And once we have that, I will be able to share more information with you and promote that. So you can see on screen here, there's multiple accounts. So you can link multiple accounts from multiple providers or multiple accounts from one provider. There isn't a limit on how many accounts you can hook up here. And they are linked directly to a bank account in Priority. So Priority then knows which bank account to open the statement for. There are many different types of provider that are available on Moneyhub. You can see some of them on screen now. There's much more than this, and if you want to know whether your provider is already registered and set up, please contact me and I'll find out for you. The result, after having hooked up to Moneyhub, is you get a statement that looks like this. All of the information, references, details, dates, etc. are brought in for you. So that's what it looks like. And if you'd like any more information about Moneyhub, let me know. Moving on to BACS payments. So when I talk about BACS payments, I'm talking about batch payments to your suppliers through BACS payments. So at the moment, the most common way that I know a lot of you are using to do BACS payments is to generate a file based on payments in priority in the format that your bank recognises, download the file, save it, log into your bank, upload the file, and then the bank processes the batch of payments for you. Now, Priority additionally supports integration with Finastra. I saw it being mentioned by the Priority team earlier. So Finastra is a service that's available that skips out the step of having to download the file, save it and upload it. It allows you to select your payments in priority and send it straight to the bank without the middleman before that. So I mentioned Moneyhub. Moneyhub also has a capability for batch payments, which alongside the payment initiation service I mentioned, we are looking into providing a service linked into Moneyhub that allows you to batch pay as well. Thank you for listening to my presentation. My email address is on screen. Many of you know me anyway. Please contact me if you want any more information about anything I've spoken to you about today. Thanks.